The International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights were adopted by the General Assembly by its Resolution 2208 of 16 December 1966. The first option protocol to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, adopted by the same resolution, provided international machinery for dealing with communications from individuals claiming to be victims of violation of any of the rights set forth by the Covenant. International Covenant. On the global level, human rights are largely codified by the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, or ICESCR, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR. These twin covenants were adopted by the UN Assembly in 1966. They were essentially treaties that gave legal effect to the rights proclaimed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The ICCPR focuses on traditional liberties, things like the right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the right to a fair trial. Civil and Political Rights, or ICCPR, these rights are often called negative rights because they primarily demand that the government refrain from acting in a way that interferes with individual liberty. They were about protecting a zone of freedom from state intrusion. They are typically immediately enforceable in a court of law. If the government violates your freedom of speech, a court can immediately order them to stop. For example, the Philippine Bill of Rights. In civil rights, the right to life, freedom from torture, freedom from arbitrary arrest or due process, the right of privacy, freedom of religion, political rights, the right to vote, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, and the right to a fair trial. Just think of this as a rules of engagement. The state must keep its distance and follow the rules, ensuring your individual dignity and ability to participate politically are never suppressed.
The ICESCR covers rights essential for human dignity and well-being, like the right to work, the right to health, the right to education, and the right to an adequate standard of living. Economic, social, and cultural rights, or ICESCR, these rights are often called positive rights because they require the government to actively take steps or positive actions to provide or realize certain conditions that allow a person to live with dignity. They are generally realized progressively, meaning governments must commit to moving towards full realization over time, using the maximum available resources as it takes budget and planning to immediately to implement them fully. For example, the right to adequate housing, the right to highest attainable standard of health, the right to education, free and compulsory primary education, the right to work and to just and favorable conditions of work like fair wages and safe environments, the right to social security like pensions or unemployment benefits. Just think of this as the conditions for a meaningful life. The state must actively build the roads, the hospitals, the schools, and the social safety nets that ensure everyone has a baseline for human dignity. While they are split into two covenants during Cold War era, the consensus today reaffirmed by the UN is that all human rights are indivisible and interdependent. You cannot truly enjoy your civil rights to vote if you are too sick or hungry to participate. they just be pursued together for a truly just society.
Now let's turn to the Philippine Bill of Rights, which is enriched in Article 3 of our 1987 Constitution. The Bill of Rights is a declaration and enumeration of a person's fundamental civil and political rights. It is the core constitutional mechanism designed to safeguard individuals from potential abuses of power. The primary relationship of these rights, as the image notes, the Bill of Rights governs the relationship between the individual and the state. It imposes constraints on the government, ensuring that no power holder can act arbitrarily or violate these fundamental rights. The Bill of Rights essentially declares prohibiting zones, areas of the private sphere where the state, its agent, or even a majority group simply cannot enter or interfere. For instance, the right to privacy or the protection against unreasonable searches, a fundamental right in action, is one of the example, bringing the two concepts together with a practical example. To understand the difference, let's use the right to freedom of expression, a right protected by both the ICCPR and the Philippine Bill of Rights. For example, the Philippines. Imagine a Filipino citizen organize a peaceful protest critiquing a new government policy. If the Philippine National Police illegally represses the crowd, arrests the organizer without a warrant, and uses excessive force, this is a clear, immediate violation of the right of freedom of assembly and due process under the Philippine Bill of Rights. The individual will seek justice with the Philippine court system, demanding the enforcement of their constitutional rights against the government and its agents. For example, in international. Now, assume the individual has exhausted every legal option in the Philippines, going all the way up to the Supreme Court, but still believes their fundamental rights under the ICCPR have been violated. The Philippines is the party to the first optional protocol. The individual could then take their case to the UN Human Rights Committee. The committee would review the case, and if it finds a violation, it would issue a non-binding but morally and politically significant fine against the Philippines. In summary, the Philippine Bill of Rights is a powerful shield. So in summary, the Bill of Rights is the powerful shield that protects us daily from government overreach and the international covenants, especially with the optional protocol, serve as the ultimate safety net for individual rights on a global scale.
So good morning everyone, my name is Edwin T. Campodondo, reporting this topic on Group 4. So my topic is People versus Marty in 1991. It is sealed executing. So Gambao v. Thieves in 2011. Will the Constitution body guarantees other rights? Article 3 provides the primary protection for her human rights. So what is human rights? Article 3 provides. So example, si Juan ay isang Pilipino ay binubuli online, maaari niyang gamitin ang kaniyang mga karapatan ilaban ang Artikulo 3 ng Saligang Batas ng Pilipinas, partikular ang kaniyang karapatan sa kalayaan, due process at pamantay sa proteksyon. Maaari siyang humingi ng katarungan sa pamagitan ng reklamo sa PNP's Anti-Cybercrime Group at pagpetisyon sa korte sa ilalim ng Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. Next is 3. Social and economic rights, which are intended to ensure the well-being and economic security of the individuals. 4 is right of accused, civil rights intended for the protection of a person accused of any crime. Human rights have a primacy over property rights, the rights of free expression and of assembly occupy a preferred position as they are essential to the preservation and vitality of civil constitution of BMP Philippines Blooming Mills Co. of 1973. Example is
Proceed to the basis. So importance according to the dignity and worth of the individual. So the principle that every human being has intrinsic value and deserve respect simply because we are human, regardless of our background, status, or other characteristic. 2S. Protection against arbitrary action of government and other member of society. So the fundamental principle primarily upheld through the rule of law and recognition of human rights that all individuals are entitled to fair, consistent, and non-discriminatory treatment. Next is the purposes. To preserve democratic ideals. So it is to protect individual human dignity and fundamental rights. Ensure that government is based on the consent of the government and foster a stable, justice, and prosperous society. So example is active civic participation, ensuring government accountability and transparency. 2 is to safeguard fundamental rights, to protect individual liberties and ensure the full physical, mental, and moral development. So example is constitutional protection, independent judiciary, specific legislation, and the work of national and international human rights body. 3 is to promote the happiness of an individual. So active, encouraging, and facilitating that person's overall subject well-being and flourishing by supporting their psychological and physical needs. So example is cultivating strong relationship, practicing gratitude and mindfulness, engaging the physical activity and self-care, and pursuing meaningful goals and hobbies. Philippine Blooming Mills Co. INC 1973, the Bill of Rights is intended to protect the principle of liberty, equality, and security against the assault of opportunism at the expediency of the passing hour. So the ention of small encroachment and the scorn and decision of those who have no patience with general principle. Of Philippine Blooming Mills Employees Organization versus Philippine Blooming Mill Co. INC 1973 established that the Bill of Rights protect fundamental human rights over property rights even when those rights are exercised through a union creativity like a protest. So example, the company refused to allow the demonstration and subsequently dismissed the employee who participated. So the Supreme Court affirmed that human rights are imprescriptible and must be defended against expediency and erosion. So even labor disputes, stating that the dismissal of employees for participating in a protest was unfair labor practice. Thank you.